Hello, hello, sir.
Okay, there we go.
Very good. Sorry about these mass technologies.
Technology. I said that I kept getting things that were ICS links, so it kept opening my calendar.
When
You
I
know,
when I send for you the first invitation, should be the invitation as a panelist. But
yeah, I don't know. I
no.
I clicked all of them, and finally, when I kept clicking, it let me join as an attendee, but not as a panelist. I don't know.
But
Well,
I
we're
always
glad to
always
have you
click
here
on.
officially, sir. Good to
Okay, we
see you.
should get going so we can not keep these people waiting.
Yeah. So, Bruno, can you guide him, please?
Bruno, you're muted, bud.
Mm, I think, sir, if you see on the bottom, you see the icon interpretation. You click and you choose English.
Uh, Interpretation. Okay, click. Choose English. Got it. Ah, there we go. All right. Mistake. Good to see you too. How are you? Now we need some. Now we need some questions in the Q&A.
Sim, agora a gente vai ver se realmente funciona essa mágica aí do Bruno. Enquanto eu vou falando aqui, você deve estar me ouvindo na voz do Bruno. Confirma?
Yes. Thumbs up. Perfect.
Perfeito. Então, pessoal, boa tarde. Sejam muito bem-vindos, sejam muito bem-vindas aqui a mais um Q&A do nosso Congresso Internacional Perform Better Brasil Connect e hoje com um dos palestrantes mais esperados pelo público, Michael Boyle. É um prazer enorme ter você por aqui. Eu acredito que não precisamos, mas eu tenho que fazer, né, a apresentação, a bio, como eu faço com todos, apesar de você ser uma figura super conhecida dos brasileiros, ok?
No problem.
Michael Boyle é especialista internacionalmente reconhecido em força e condicionamento físico, ex-consultor de força e condicionamento pelo campeão da World Series Boston Red Sox, treinador de força e condicionamento com as equipes olímpicas de medalha de ouro dos Estados Unidos no futebol feminino e hóquei feminino, autor de livros como Avanços em Treinamento Funcional, O Novo Modelo de Treinamento Funcional e Projetando Programas e Instalações de Treinamento de Força, bem como mais de 20 DVDs de instrução em treinamento de força. Fundou e coordena o Michael Boyle Strength and Conditioning, o MBSC. Nos últimos 38 anos, ele tem sido um treinador de força e condicionamento para alguns dos melhores atletas do mundo, incluindo Boston Bruins, The New England Revolution, que é o time de soccer da MLS, hockey masculino da Boston University, The Boston Breakers, que é o WUSA, Boston Blazers, mais de 40 medalhistas de hóquei no gelo nos Jogos Olímpicos de Inverno de 98 até 2002, mais de 20 escolhas do primeiro, segundo e terceiro rodadas do draft da NFL, vários atletas na Copa do Mundo masculino e feminino nos Jogos Olímpicos de Verão, atletas da PGA, da MLB, United States Tennis Association e World Box Association. Michael, mais uma vez é um prazer enorme ter você por aqui e mais uma vez é um prazer enorme ter você no palco do Perform Better Brasil Connect.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Com tantas conquistas, Michael, e com tantos títulos já conquistados, né? E portanto já feito para a indústria do fitness, eu te pergunto, o que faz você manter até hoje essa chama interna acesa e ainda produzindo, acordando cedo e trabalhando?
I have two kids that have to go to college.
Excelente, excelente resposta.
No, but I like what I do. I've always liked what I did, and I don't. I It sounds cliche, but I don't really think about it as work, to be truthful.
E você acredita que na sua posição hoje você ainda tem muito para produzir e muito para contribuir para a indústria?
I'll be very honest. I think I have about 2 years left. And then I'm going to be significantly less visible, and I'm going to let the Kevin Carrs and Brendan Rearichs and Steve Bigelow's and those guys of the world take over, because truthfully, I'm losing some of that steam. Truthfully, I'm not probably as energetic. I'm going to be 62 this year, and I've worked for 40 years on a really consistent basis. So I'd love to say, oh yeah, I'm really excited, I'm going to do this till I'm 100, but that would be a lie.
São mais 2 anos, você diz, porque o seu filho mais novo daqui a 2 anos estaria no college e aí você estaria praticamente já com o seu trabalho feito?
Yeah, 2 years. Actually, my oldest one will be done with college, and then I can hopefully enjoy the other one while he's in college and be able to go, and hopefully, God willing, he's playing college sports somewhere and I can just go watch and hang out. But I based on how I've saved for retirement, 2 more years, I should be good.
Excelente. Mas não vai fechar o MBSC, né? Você só não vai trabalhar todo dia. O MBSC continua, correto?
Things will still continue. I think eventually guys like Steve and Kevin and guys like that will probably take over more of the day-to-day operations, and hopefully eventually they become the owners of the business. I think that's probably the direction that we'd like to go in. Who knows what happens in a couple of years, but I want to see it continue. I love the work. I love the way the place runs, but I definitely don't want to be and my problem is I struggle not being there day to day. So it's a little bit difficult.
Em 2014, quando eu conheci o seu espaço, eu vi o potencial dos meninos que você treinava, né? Kevin Carr, Kevin Larrabee, Marco Sanchez, Brandon, todos esses garotos que eu chamava de nova geração. Você acredita que eles hoje já estão realmente prontos para atingir o máximo da carreira, ou eles ainda estão em ascensão, em crescimento?
I think they are. I think particularly when you look at what Kevin and Brendan have been able to do the last couple of years, and even Steve Bigelow, Dan McGinley, like a lot of these guys are doing it already with CFSC. They're running CFSC. They're doing, I won't even say 90% of the work. They're doing 100% of the work. And even in the gym, a lot of those guys are doing a large percentage of the work now. So yeah, I think we're very, very lucky that we've been able to create a really good group. So I think there's another generation that's going to do really, really good things kind of under the same umbrella. I always have the same kind of tired joke in terms of, if you went to buy a car and you said, okay, I want to buy a Mercedes, or I want to buy an Audi, or I want to buy a Toyota, you don't expect to see Mr. Mercedes or Mr. Audi or Mr. Toyota at the dealership, right? You just know that these things stand for a certain level of quality. And I think that's people will still be coming to Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning because we all stand for a certain level of quality.
Excelente. No início da sua carreira, você imaginava que iria ser colocado nessa posição onde você iria preparar novos treinadores? Porque na época você só trabalhava com atletas, né? Como foi para você lidar com essa posição onde você era como um treinador dos treinadores, né, da sua equipe?
I think that's, I guess, part of the natural evolution as you develop a business, is that it becomes less about you and more about you. You're literally training the trainers. I still train the athletes. I'm still there. But even now, when we go in the morning and we have our higher level, like our college professional Olympic level women's group, or we've got our professional athlete group, I'm there helping with those groups, but I'm not running those groups. Vinny runs the guys. Pat Stefanski runs the girls. They do, again, 90% of the work is them. I always say, if most people now came in like you did in 2014 and didn't know who I was and hadn't seen me, they would think, who's the old guy who helps out? Like, who's the guy that's walking around sort of just looking at everything and picking stuff up off the floor? But I certainly don't look like I'm in charge. And that's by design.
Excelente. Você teve dois livros, né, que literalmente mudou a vida de muitos profissionais: Avanços no Treinamento Funcional e O Novo Modelo do Treinamento Funcional. E a pergunta que passa pela cabeça de vários é: quando vem o próximo livro? Ou tem algum próximo livro em processo?
I'm redoing the one I did. You mentioned it, designing strength training programs and facilities. I wrote, I wrote it in 2005, pretty much right after I wrote the first functional training for sports. And I'm in the process of revising that. I would say 75% done. I would love to have had it already done, but realistically speaking, I'm hoping that by Christmas, there'll be another book. Because one thing that I saw, when you look at how fast Kevin and Brendan's books got translated, it took me literally decades for any of these books to be in another language. And Kevin and Brendan's bang, I think. And Portuguese is always one of the first, one of the fastest. And I think that's Sid's a good translator, I think. So that's if you can get somebody that can translate quick, you're in good shape.
Exatamente, o Sid Clay é uma máquina. O Sid Clay, eu passo para ele algumas coisas, no mesmo dia, às vezes ele devolve, que eu falo: Sid, como é que você consegue fazer isso tão rápido? Ele é uma máquina. E ele tem uma paixão muito grande também por fazer a informação chegar para outros profissionais que não leem inglês, né? Isso é uma coisa realmente que é muito precioso do lado dele. Agora, essa velocidade que...
I'm so appreciative of him too, because when you look at, we've been able to really penetrate the Portuguese market, in the Brazilian market, because of guys like you and guys like him who are passionate about getting this information out to people who don't speak English. Because I mean, I know even in my book's situation, it's amazing to see how many, I think it's in, I don't know, 10, 11 languages now. But you realize you've still probably only hit maybe 50% of the world with those 10 or 11 languages, when you realize that it's not in Russian, it's not in Hindi. There's still massive portions of the population that don't get access to this information.
Concordo perfeitamente. E você foi o primeiro, né, que incentivou os meninos a escreverem o livro, e que, como o seu livro também foi traduzido, os deles automaticamente começaram a ser traduzidos. Então você é o maior responsável por isso, né? Você encorajou eles a escreverem um livro? Partiu de você?
I encourage them to do it. I think I've always said, if it's a big part of being perceived as an expert, for whatever reason, there's a big difference between someone who talks at a seminar and someone who's written a book. There's something about someone, being able to pick up the book and look at the book and say, hey, this guy wrote a book, that puts you, I think, in a different orbit than everybody else. Because I guess it indicates that you put in a lot of extra time, because you're not making a dime while you're writing those books, and you're not really making a lot of money off the book itself, but it's the time that it takes you to put that together that in a lot of ways separates you from some of the other people in the field.
Excelente, realmente é bem importante ter isso como um título, né? Escrever um livro. Tendo você como uma das maiores referências do mundo, quem são os profissionais que Mike Boyle ultimamente busca informações para se atualizar ou para aprender sobre algum assunto?
I think probably when the guy that had the biggest effect on me, I think, was Stuart McGill, whose stuff you've also translated. He really changed the way we thought about core training. And then other people, more, Greg Cook, I think, was very instrumental in changing how we view training. Mark Verstegen at Exos was very instrumental in looking at us and saying how you view training. Even to some degree, Thomas Myers, and talking about the fascial system. And The whole anatomy trains idea. So many of these things reinforced or reaffirmed a lot of the things that we were already doing. And the expression is great minds think alike. And I believe that when I look, it was really funny because I always recommend Mark Verstegen's initial core performance book, what I always call the red cover core performance. It's like red and white cover with a picture of Mark on the front. And that book was the same year as my original functional training for sports. But when people ask me for a really good basic book, I always tell them, pick up the original core performance and read it, because it's really well done. And it's very similar. I always say the names we use are different. He might say movement preparation, we might just say warm up. He might say energy system development, and we just say conditioning. But when you really look at the system, they're very, very similar. And that was one of the things I guess maybe I liked it because it was like mine. But when I look at that, and I think that MBSC, CFSC, and Exos are probably two of the biggest educational influencers in the field. And the basic principles of those two systems are extremely similar. So I think that's a good thing. Not sure.
Entendido. Seu título esse ano será, na palestra, Atualizações do Treinamento Unilateral. O que os participantes poderão aprender com você? Poderia dar um spoiler aqui?
I can give you a bit of a spoiler. It will literally be the updates that we've made in our approach to unilateral training. And I think some of it, and I don't want to spill the beans, I think some of it will surprise people. Some of it, there's some really good research that the people that follow me on Instagram have seen it, but a guy named Alex Natera did some really good research. He's actually now in Australia, but I think he was in Dubai, if I'm not mistaken, when he actually did the research. But some of the things that we learned from him, again, reaffirmed things that we already believed, and in some ways made us kind of, okay, we're going to double down on some of these ideas, some of the things that we thought were important. Now we're thinking, yeah, they're really important. And maybe now we can put some harder numbers to them in terms of ratios. How strong should you be in a one leg squat? What's a good one leg squat? What's a okay one leg squat? Those kind of things. That's the stuff that we'll talk about in the webinar, is where we are right now in this idea of unilateral training.
Excelente. E eu gostei de um podcast que você deu uns dias desses, onde você falou o quanto treinamento unilateral já vinha sendo aplicado há 15 ou mais anos, e só agora, depois de muito tempo, a ciência começou a provar o quanto benefício tem treinamento unilateral. Você acredita que ainda tem muito mais coisa que o MBSC vem fazendo e que a ciência ainda não conseguiu provar o quanto é bom, mas na prática vocês já descobriram o quanto é benéfico?
I think there's a lot of it. I think foam rolling, stretching, I think people still go back and forth. You'll see things about, oh, stretching's not good for you. Oh, you shouldn't stretch, it's going to reduce power. And foam rolling, someone was talking about foam rolling the other day and saying, well, there's really no evidence that foam rolling actually works, which I think there is probably moderate evidence that it works, but there's huge anecdotal evidence that it works. Everybody that I always say, the amazing thing about foam rolling is everybody that you show foam rolling almost automatically says, where can I buy one of these? That's really powerful to me, that somebody has enough feeling when they're done to think, I'm going to go purchase one of these products. It literally, when you talk about a product that sells itself, it sells itself. And so I think there are areas like that. I think, and I say this all the time from I think, half comical, half cocky, but I always think that eventually everybody will think like us. Eventually everybody will come around and realize that it's not just, because if you think about Brazil was still trapped in the, the body part bodybuilding kind of thing for the longest time. Now they're in what I would call the silly functional training phase, where there's a lot of Bosu balls and a lot of balance stuff, which is kind of where we were 15 years ago. And then eventually you'll see, okay, it's moved from bodybuilding to silly, stupid stuff, standing on balls and standing on Bosus, and then what it'll eventually look like is more like what you see at MBSC, more of what the CFSC is. So I think that's where, especially for you, you're ahead of the curve, because over time, and the good thing is the catch up will be that much more rapid now. It took us a really long time. I mean, in 2009, when I first said we're not going to squat anymore, that caused a real uproar. People spent hours on the internet insulting me, so, calling me names and talking about what an idiot I was. And a lot of those same people have since apologized and said, wow, I started to train more people, and I started to see the exact same things that you saw. And then I started to try these unilateral things that you talked about. And then I started to think, wow, these things actually work. So I do really believe that we're ahead of the curve, and that we're a little bit ahead of the research, and that hopefully we stay ahead of the curve and stay ahead of the research because part of it is you have to be willing to I'm reading a book, and I almost did this talk, but I started doing a talk, which I think I'm going to do at Perform Better next year, that says 20 books to change your life and your business. And the first 2 books are Start with Why and then Think Again. Those are the 2 books, because what I want you to do is start with why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And I think if most people just did that and really said, okay, why do I do this? Why did I choose this exercise? Why am I doing this? And truly examined it, a lot more people would come around to our way of thinking. And then that's where this other book, Adam Grant's Think Again, comes in, because that's what he talks about. You'll kind of get your why and then think about it again. Ask yourself, because that's the one thing that I'm always doing. I love this Think Again idea, because I'm always thinking again. I'm always asking myself, am I right? Because I want to be right. And I always think I'm always right up until the moment that I realize that I'm wrong. And then I'm immediately right again, because I change. And I think that's the way it should be, is that you really have to believe in your system, yet you have to constantly evaluate your system and say, wow, is my system, is it the best? And if it's not, that's the one thing I always look at, who's better? I can remember going down before there was an Exos, before there was an Athletes Performance, going down and meeting Mark Verstegen at what was then International Performance Institute. And I walked away and thought, wow, he's doing some things better than we are. Some of the lateral movement progressions were better. He had incorporated Gray Cook's chopping and lifting diagonal patterns. They had a medicine ball wall, huge medicine ball wall built, and they were throwing medicine balls off their medicine ball wall. And I remember being down there and thinking of all the things I was going to take back from there and put into our system when I got back, because I felt like, okay, this is a little bit better than what we're doing. This is a little bit better than what we're doing. This is something that we could add here. And I believe that's how you really develop an exceptional system, is by consistently seeking out other people who are maybe on your level or above your level, and looking and asking yourself, what are they doing? How are they getting the results that they're getting? And can I incorporate what they're doing into what I'm doing? That's the McGill, the core training idea. I can remember listening to McGill and thinking, wow, we're doing a lot of things wrong. We're still doing sit-ups and crunches and Russian twists and all this stuff. And he's basically saying, in so many words, that's probably not how you want to do it. And I went back to our coaches and I said, okay, we're going to make some really big changes. And the coaches weren't happy, because their thought process is, why? This is what we're doing works. What we're doing is great. And I thought, but maybe right now, when we think again, the science doesn't really support, the current science isn't supporting what we're doing, which means we need to catch up to the science a little bit in that regard.
Excelentes visões, excelentes informações. Eu confesso que em 2011, quando eu assisti o seu primeiro DVD, que foi Strength Coach 6, que você estava na Irlanda palestrando e falando que não fazia mais abdominais, flexão de tronco, eu fiquei assim, hã? Não é possível. E aí depois fui buscar mais informações, enfim, realmente é uma evolução muito grande. E voltando um pouquinho para o que você falou, Mike, você falou sobre o quanto de pessoas fazem algumas agressões verbais, ou faziam, né? Fazem até hoje, mas faziam muito lá atrás para você, para algumas coisas quando você falava não agachar mais. E algumas semanas atrás a gente fez uma postagem sua, que foi de um artigo dos 4 piores exercícios que uma pessoa acima de 40 anos deveria fazer. Eu até te mandei o post para você ver. Impressionante como nós recebemos muito comentários maldosos, comentários ruins, e assim, que fica até entristece um pouco. O que que você indica para esse tipo de situação quando isso acontecer novamente? Porque vai acontecer. Não só para mim,
Oh,
mas para outros aqui da
it's going to
audiência, né?
happen. It's going to happen over and over again, because I think anytime you take a stance that people would consider to be controversial, there's going to be controversy, right? And anytime you question the status quo, anytime you question the people who think this is the way we always did it, those people are going to get upset. And the reason I think, and I've said this as long as I've been doing these talks, so at least since 2009, talking about this idea of not squatting and the changes that we've made, is that people who are threatened, I mean, what does a dog do when it's threatened? It bites you, right? I mean, that's how people are. When people are threatened, when they see the way that they do things being questioned, then they react the way that you were discussing on social media. They react negatively. They call you names. And I feel like if you're not getting a certain percentage of that, you're probably not doing it right. So for me, I would look at that. When I wrote that article, I thought these are exercises that I don't think are good for general population. And we were having this discussion the other day, and someone said, well, what's the difference between, we just call our clients adult clients. What's the difference between your adult clients and your athlete clients? And I said, my adult clients have a job that doesn't involve playing sports, and they have to go to work when they're done, or they have to go to work the next day. And that's really, really different when you're thinking about how you're going to treat that person, and thinking, okay, if this person hurts their back or hurts their shoulder or whatever it is, and suddenly can't go to work or needs an operation or misses extended days, that's a really big problem in their life. So I'm looking at that, and my job is to enhance their life. My job is to make their life better, not make their life worse. And when I know that there are exercises that historically have not worked well for our adult population, like squats and deadlifts with two of them, then we don't do those. And if I think I can get somebody stronger doing split squats and single leg deadlifts and one leg straight leg deadlifts and all the things that we do, split squats, I think, why would I take the risk of having somebody injure their back doing some of these other things? Then I look at the athlete and think, same thing. If this athlete can't play, where's the team? When their best player is not playing, that's a problem. And so I think we have to look at that. The problem, most of the people, I would venture to say, most of the people that argue with me have probably not trained enough people. I think that's one of the biggest questions. And I was having this discussion with one of our interns today, and I said, you always, whenever you have these people arguing with you on Instagram, you should go look at their profile and figure out exactly what it is that they do. 90% of the time, the person who's arguing is someone who trains themselves, or someone who has a really small population of clients. And in our situation, we're the polar opposite in terms of we have hundreds and hundreds of people that we're training a year. So our sample size is much bigger. So let's just say, if you said, okay, let's just say 10% of the people who do heavy back squats are going to have back pain. If you train 100 people, that's only 10 people. Maybe that's not a big deal. You say, oh, I just modify their workouts. So I modify the workouts for those 10, and they don't do that anymore. If you look at ours and say 1,000 and think, now I got 100 people walking around saying their back hurts from working out at Mike Boyle's, that's not good. And if you look at that in an athletic population and think, if you put your best player out with an injury, you could ruin an entire team's season. So I think you have to be thinking, again, it goes back, I just said it goes back to that Think Again book, but it's that ability to rethink these things that I think separates us from everybody else.
Entendido. Pegando já esse gancho, que era uma das minhas próximas perguntas aqui, pegando já esse gancho, comparando população em geral e atletas, né? Você já esteve nos dois extremos da profissão, trabalhando com as equipes mais bem equipadas do planeta, atletas mais bem pagos, e hoje também tem no seu espaço no MBC um público muito forte, que é o público de população em geral, né? Indivíduos normais. Esse público vem crescendo constantemente no MBC?
Yes, when we started out, 100% of our business was athletes. We didn't train Gen Pop at all, zero. Now, 50% of our business are these adult clients, these general population clients. And our business has grown. So if you look at revenue right now, our adult revenue is equal to our total revenue probably of 10 years ago. And that's where the biggest growth for us has been in the adults, not in the athletes. I would almost say our athlete business has been a little bit flat because it was so big to begin with. And we have a constant influx. There's always new people competing with us. But in the adult population, and I think a lot of the high intensity stuff, whether it's CrossFit or Orange Theory or any of those type of things, I feel like they make customers for us because they get people in situations where they think, wow, I like the camaraderie, I like the intensity, but my body just can't handle this. And then there's Mike Boyle, strength and conditioning, waiting for them with open arms, saying, come over here. We'll take care of you. We'll make you feel better and help you meet your workout needs. Because I think that's the biggest difference is for a long time, and again, this is the think again thing. People were evaluating workouts based on things like how sweaty you got, how tired you were. I evaluate workouts completely differently. I look at workouts and think, I want people to tell me how good they feel. I want people to say, I don't have to take my blood pressure medication anymore. I don't have to take my insulin anymore. I feel better when I get up in the morning. My back doesn't hurt anymore. My knee doesn't hurt anymore. My shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. That's the kind of stuff I want. Whereas a lot of times people have the opposite. I'm saying, oh man, it was a kick-ass workout. It was so hard. I was dying. But, and then I get up, my shoulder hurts and my back hurts and my knees hurt. I think that's not good programming for anybody. I don't care if it's an adult or an athlete. You'd want people. I always tell people my measuring stick is, do you feel better when you get out of bed? If you don't, then we got a problem. Hey, I got to be off at 2:15 because I got to drive my son. But I have two questions in the Q&A. So I want to make sure I hit both of them because Mateus and Mauro were nice enough to throw these questions in. You're going to have to translate Mauro's for me because I don't.
Ok. Qual a forma de avaliação é adotada hoje no MBSC? Vocês utilizam o FMS? Se sim, com que frequência realizam as reavaliações?
So in all honesty, the only time we assess our one-on-one clients. We assess our clients that are injured coming in. If somebody comes in otherwise, we just put them in the program. So realistically, there is no assessment process because we have an introductory program and we start somebody out easily. And we feel like in these sort of kind of lower cost products, it's really difficult to assess every client that comes in with the number of adult clients that we're going to have. So we're still very FMS based from a thought process standpoint, but we're not doing the FMS and everybody that comes in. And then the other one I can read because
eu preciso ler para eles em português. Nós sabemos que individualização.
It says that, actually, you can just read that out. Go ahead.
Nós sabemos que individualização é a chave para um melhor treinamento em grupo, né, de atleta individual, desculpe, para um atleta individual. O que vocês fazem de estratégias para individualizar um trabalho trabalho de força e condicionamento para um grupo, né, para um time?
Again, very similar to what we said about the FMS. There's the individualization. So what we always do, we start with a basic program. We then take that basic program and we look and say, okay, Carlos has a back injury. Bruno has a shoulder injury. Okay, what do we get? And that's the whole CFSC system is based on making that individualization easy. What's the progression? What's the regression? How do I get Carlos to a pain-free situation for his back? How do I get Bruno to a pain-free situation for his shoulder? And those are the things that we're looking at, because a lot of the other stuff, and again, I've said these things over and over again, 90% of what you do, even across sports, is the same. It's the 10% that's different. The other part, from an individualization standpoint, is just meeting somebody where they are as an individual, listening to them, talking to them, letting them, particularly in a team setting, ask questions so that they become comfortable with why you want them to do what you do. But I tell everybody, if you came in, and Carlos, you've been there, if you came to MBSC and you watched the workout, one thing you'd walk away with is, wow, it looks like everybody's doing the same thing. And the reality is that's the way that it is. Everybody is doing the same thing. Everybody's foam rolling, everybody's stretching, everybody's doing dynamic warm-up, everybody's doing some sort of plyo, everybody's doing med ball throws, everybody's doing a push, a pull, a knee dominant, a hip dominant. It's selecting that out based on where that person is that really creates the individualization. And then it's that ability to connect with that person so that you look at it and think, hey, this person is listening to me. The idea to talk about, they feel heard. He's not just making me do what everybody else is doing. He's explaining to me why I need to do this, this, and this, instead of, trying to write 20 individual programs that really aren't 20 individual programs anyway. So I think for a lot of people that, individualization is, I think, a little bit more fiction than fact.
O que as pessoas não entendem é que o programa do CFSC é feito para grupos, né? Não individual. Quando você trabalha individual com personal trainer, você tem mais habilidades, né, para trabalhar a individualização. Mike, muito obrigado pelo seu tempo aqui.
I gotta drive my son to work.
Muito obrigado pela sua participação. Bruno, muito obrigado. Pessoal, muito obrigado pelo seu tempo. Mike, só
Bruno,
uma
thank you very much. You're the best, buddy.
A foto, dá um sorriso, Mike, uma foto.
Right.
Maravilha. Perfeito. Pessoal, muito obrigado, Mike. Obrigado a todos vocês aqui pela participação. E o evento está chegando. Se inscrevam logo. Não deixem para depois.
Exactly. See ya.